A blade slammed flat against an oak door. Boots cracked against frozen mud outside the forge. A leather glove ripped the iron bolt clean from its hinge. 6 gaunt riders stepped through the smoke of the cooling furnace. Their long cloaks dripped with sleet from the high passes. Each carried a thin silver writ stamped with a black seal. The forge fell silent. The hammer hit the floor. A young woman backed against the anvil with her hands black from soot. Her father raised an unfinished sword in front of her chest. A gloved hand closed around the blade without flinching and snapped it like a dried reed. The girl on the floor was named Selene. They had come straight for her. They had come because the 7th bride was already dead by her own hand. The blood solstice would not wait for another. Stay with me on this one. The riders did not speak at first. They simply held the writ out where the firelight could catch the seal. The seal was the mark of the Council of Vareth. Every village in the Carpathian foothills knew that mark. Mothers used it to scare children into silence. Old men spat on the ground when they saw it on a notice nailed to a market post. Now it was here, in the doorway of a blacksmith's forge, in the hands of men whose faces did not move when the cold air bit them. Selene's father stood between her and the riders. His name was Aldrich Cross. He had a thick neck. He had hands the size of dinner plates. He was the kind of man who could hold a horseshoe still while another man drove the nails. He had buried Selene's mother in the back garden 3 winters ago, and he had not cried once. He was crying now. Not loud. Just water on his cheeks. The lead rider stepped forward. He was tall, military big. His armor was lacquered black and did not shine. He pulled back his hood. His skin was the color of river stone. His eyes were pale and quiet. He looked older than the forge and younger than Selene at the same time. That is the trick of their kind. You can never put a year on them. He spoke once. He said the name. Selene Cross, daughter of Aldrich, 19 years of age. 7th bride. Aldrich raised his hammer. The rider did not move. The rider only looked at the hammer the way a man looks at a child holding a wooden spoon. Aldrich brought the hammer down anyway. The rider caught it in mid-air. The wooden handle splintered in his fist. He set the broken hammer on the anvil with care. He did not bruise the old man. He did not need to. Selene watched her father drop to his knees. She watched him beg for the first time in her life. She had never seen him beg. She had seen him pull a horse out of a frozen river with his bare hands. She had seen him take a kick from a bull and walk it off. She had never seen him put his forehead against the boots of another man. Now here's the thing. He did not beg for himself. He begged for a single hour. 1 hour to say goodbye. The rider tilted his head. He considered it. Then he said no. They put a wool cloak over Selene's shoulders. They did not bind her wrists. They did not need to. They had her father in the corner of the room, and the message was clear. If the daughter ran, the father bled. The rider took her arm. Not roughly, almost politely, as if she were already a guest in some other house, and not a girl with soot under her fingernails. He walked her to the door. She turned once. She looked back at Aldrich. Aldrich mouthed 3 words. She would carry those 3 words with her for the rest of the night. He said, "Do not drink." Selene did not understand the words yet. Do not drink. She turned them over in her head like a stone in a pocket. Her father had never given her a stupid order in his life. Every rule he had ever set had a reason under it. Hold the tongs higher because hot iron spits. Stand to the left of a frightened horse because the right is the kicking side. Count the stones in any room you enter. Memorize the inside of every blade. Now this. Do not drink. There would be a reason. The road climbed for hours. They put her on a black horse between 2 of the riders. She did not speak. She had been raised in a village where speaking to a council rider was the same as opening your own throat. She watched the trees thin out. She watched the snow get deeper. She watched the stars come out one by one above the high ridge. The other girls were already gathered at the second way station. 6 of them, all in white, all with hair brushed flat by some servant who had not asked. Some were crying quietly. One was singing under her breath. A nursery song, the kind a mother sings to a baby. That girl looked the most broken of them all because she had given up the idea that she was anything but a child being walked to a slaughter. Selene did not cry. Not yet. She watched. She counted the riders. She counted the doors. She counted the stones in the courtyard floor. She memorized the route the way her father had taught her to memorize the inside of a blade. By the time they reached the great gate of Varith, her mind had already started to plan. She did not have a plan yet. She had the bones of one. That was enough for now. Believe me, a plan with bones is a plan that can still walk. The fortress of Varith sat on a black ridge above a frozen lake. Its towers had been carved out of a single mountain by hands that had 9 centuries to work. The gate was 4 times the height of a man. It opened without a sound. The horses walked through it like horses walking into a church. Inside the gate the air was warm. That was the first wrong thing. There were no fires. No torches. No hearths. The air was warm anyway. Selene's breath did not show. One of the other girls stopped walking. A handmaid pushed her forward with the flat of her hand. They were led down a long corridor lined with banners. A wolf, a serpent, a raven, a stag with a broken antler, a bat with wings full open, a hand holding a black sun, a cup pouring nothing, 7 banners, 7 sigils, 7 lords. The girl who was singing the nursery song looked up at the bat banner and went very still. A woman in a long gray dress stepped out of an arch. Her eyes were the same pale stone as the lead riders. She introduced herself as Mother Helska. She said she had prepared brides for the council for 170 years. She did not boast. She just stated it. Helska walked along the line of 7 girls. She tilted each face up to the light. She did not seem cruel. She seemed bored. She gave instructions to the handmaids in a flat voice. This one needs her hair pinned higher. This one needs her nails trimmed. This one is shivering. Bring her a hot drink. When she reached Selene, she stopped. She looked at the soot under Selene's fingernails. She looked at the small burn scar on the back of Selene's left hand. She looked at the way Selene stood. Selene was not slouched. She was not proud. She was simply not afraid in any way Helska could read. Helska tilted her head. She said one word. Smith. Selene nodded. Helska did not smile. But something in her stone eyes moved. Just a flicker. Then it was gone. They bathed her. They braided her hair. They dressed her in a white gown with a long red sash. The sash was the color of fresh blood. Selene asked the handmaid what the red was for. The handmaid did not look at her. She only said, "So they can see it across the hall." The burned scar on the back of Selene's left hand began to itch. She remembered a night when she was 4 years old. She remembered her father pressing a hot iron sigil against her hand on purpose. She remembered her mother holding her down and whispering, "It will hide you. It will hide you. It will hide you." She had forgotten that memory for 15 years. It came back now in the heat of Varith. They were taken to a stone bench outside the throne hall. 7 girls in a row. Selene was placed last. The 7th seat. She understood now why her father had said do not drink. The original 7th bride had drunk. The original 7th bride was dead. Her father had heard the news in the market that morning. He had hoped it would buy them a year. It had bought them 6 hours. A small old man crossed the corridor. He was human. Or he had been once. He looked at the girls and his eyes filled with water. He did not stop. He did not speak. He kept walking. That was the moment Selene understood the truth. The humans inside Varith were not slaves. They were ghosts. They had survived by becoming furniture. She did not want to become furniture. She would rather become smoke. The doors opened. The doors did not creak. They did not boom. They opened in absolute silence. That silence was worse than any sound. The 7 girls were walked into the throne hall in a single line. Selene at the back. Her bare feet were cold on the black stone floor. The hall was longer than any building she had ever seen. At the far end of the hall stood 7 thrones. On each throne sat a lord. Not a man. A lord. The lords did not move when the brides entered. They sat the way the mountain sat outside the fortress. The way a thing sits when it has nowhere it needs to be. The candles in the hall were tall and white. They burned without flicker. The air did not move at all. Even Selene's red sash hung perfectly still against her hip, as if the world inside this hall had agreed to stop breathing. The lords were named. Each name was spoken once. Each lord rose when his name was called. Lord of the Wolf, Lord of the Serpent, Lord of the Raven, Lord of the Broken Stag, Lord of the Open Bat, Lord of the Black Sun, and last, Lord Vasily of the Empty Cup. Vasily did not rise. Vasily did not need to. He was the oldest of them. He was the one who would receive the 7th bride. He sat at the center of the 7 thrones. He looked at Selene. He looked at no one else. Mother Helska took her place beside a stone pedestal at the foot of the thrones. On the pedestal sat a single chalice. It was old. The metal was so dark it looked wet. It had been hammered by a hand that had not been mortal. Selene Smith, I saw that immediately. She saw something else too. The chalice had a hairline crack near its rim. She did not know yet that this crack would matter. But she filed it away, the way her father had taught her. The chalice was lifted. Helska began the rite. She spoke in a tongue older than the empire that had built the road outside. The girls did not understand a word. They did not need to. They knew that the chalice would come to each of them in turn. They knew that to drink was to be bound. They knew that to refuse was to be opened on the stone floor. Then Helska paused. She set the chalice down on the pedestal. She poured a small cup of clear water from a side pitcher. She handed it to the lead rider. He walked it to Vasily. Vasily sipped. Vasily nodded. The hall waited. For one long moment, the entire ceremony stopped to allow a single old man on a throne to drink a single sip of water. The candles did not flicker. Selene's sash did not move. The pause felt almost peaceful, as if nothing was about to happen at all. Then the chalice tipped on its own. Just a hair. Just enough to send a single drop of dark wine over the lip and onto the pedestal stone. That single drop hissed. The hiss was small. The hiss was clear. Every lord on every throne sat forward at once. The chalice reached the first bride. She drank. Her shoulders sagged. Her eyes glazed. She smiled the smile of a woman who had given up and was grateful for it. The chalice reached the second bride. She drank. The chalice reached the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. Each drank. Each surrendered. Each became quiet. The hall was full of quiet women now. The kind of quiet that is not peace. The chalice reached Selene. The candles in the hall did not flicker. Not yet. She lifted the chalice with both hands. She felt the hairline crack under her right thumb. She looked into the dark wine. It was not wine. She did not need a smith's eye to see that. It was thicker than wine. It was older than wine. It moved against the side of the cup, as if it had a small, slow heart of its own. She raised the cup to her lips. The lords leaned forward. All 7 of them. For the first time. They leaned. That was the moment she understood that the right mattered to them, that the right was the only thing standing between their 900 years and whatever waited on the other side. She lowered the cup. She did not drink. She turned the cup over and poured the dark wine onto the stone floor at her own feet. The wine did not soak in. The wine rolled away from her in a slow black circle, as if it were afraid of her. The first candle in the hall went out. There was no breath behind it. There was no hand. The flame simply was not there anymore. Then the second candle. Then the third. Then a whole row of them along the eastern wall. The hall began to go dark in long, quiet steps. The lords rose. All 7 of them. Together. Vasily did not rise. Vasily gripped the arms of his throne. The stone under his fingers cracked. If you are still with me on this story, do me one favor and hit that subscribe button. Because what Selene did next has not been told outside Varith in 900 years. The chalice fell from her hand. It did not bounce. It split clean along the hairline crack she had felt. A black mist rose out of the broken metal. It did not climb. It hung, as if the air itself had been waiting for a door to open. The mist curled around Selene's ankles. It did not touch her. It passed around her the way water passes around a rock in a stream. Vasily spoke for the first time. His voice was not loud. It was not angry. It was very tired. He said, "You are not the smith's daughter." Selene answered him. She said, "I am." Vasily shook his head once. He said, "You are. And you are something older. They have hidden you well." Selene did not understand. Not yet. But her hand on the broken chalice felt warm in a way no metal should feel. And the burn scar on the back of her left hand began to glow with a dull red light, like a forge ember waking up after a long sleep. The lords moved. The Lord of the Wolf was the first. He came across the hall in a single stride that should not have been possible. He did not run. He did not crouch. He simply was at the foot of the throne one moment and an arm's length from Selene the next. He reached for her throat. His fingers passed through the black mist. The mist closed on his wrist. It did not bite. It did not burn. It held. The wolf snarled. He could not pull his arm back. His shoulder began to shake. The Lord of the Serpent moved next. He was thin. He was fast. He came along the wall in a low line. He carried a curved blade no thicker than a wheat stalk. He went for Selene's heel. The Lord of the Broken Stag stepped in front of him. Not to protect Selene. To protect the right. To protect the chalice. The stag had not survived 900 years by allowing chaos in the throne hall. The serpent and the stag locked arms. Their feet slid against the stone. The other lords hesitated. That hesitation cost them. Selene knelt. She picked up the broken half of the chalice. She held it like a hammer. Her father's 3 words rang in her head. Do not drink. He had known. He had always known. The smith of a last village does not raise a daughter alone for 19 years without keeping a secret in his chest. Selene understood now why her mother had been buried in the garden and not in the village ground. She understood why her father had taught her to memorize blades, why he had taught her to count the stones in any room she entered. He had been preparing her, not for marriage, for this. The Lord of the Open Bat lifted his wings off his back. The wings were not feathered. They were not skin. They were a kind of folded dark that the eye refused to focus on. He came at Selene from above. The mist around her ankles climbed her body in a single fast spiral. It met the wings in the air. The wings folded back of their own accord. The Lord of the Open Bat dropped to one knee in front of her. His own wings had refused him. The Lord of the Raven flung something small from his sleeve. A black stone. The stone never reached her. It hung in the air between them and turned slowly. Then it cracked. Then it fell as gravel onto the floor. The raven made a small sound in his throat. The sound of an old man who has just realized that the language he has spoken his whole life does not work in this room anymore. Selene walked toward the thrones. The black mist walked with her. The candles continued to go out one by one. The hall was almost dark now. The only light left was the red glow from the burned scar on her left hand. That glow grew. It crept up her wrist. It climbed her forearm. It traced the shape of an old letter on the inside of her elbow. A letter she had been told was just a birthmark. A letter that was, in fact, a name. Her true name. A name that had not been spoken aloud in 1,200 years. Vasily saw the letter. Vasily closed his eyes. He whispered a single word in the old tongue. The word was a name. The name was not Selene. The other 6 lords heard the name. The 6 brides who had drunk heard the name. The 6 brides began awake from their daze. The wine they had drunk lost its grip on them. One of them stood up. She looked at her hands as if she had not seen them in years. Selene reached the foot of Vasily's throne. She lifted the broken chalice. She did not strike him. She did not need to. She placed the broken edge against the stone floor at his feet. She pressed down. The black mist followed her hand into the crack. The crack widened. A second crack appeared along the base of his throne. Then a third. Then a fourth. The thrones were not made of stone. The thrones were the bones of the bloodline itself. Every lord on every throne went pale. Paler than pale. The color of skim milk. The Lord of the Black Sun made one last attempt. He raised both hands. He brought a darkness down over the hall that erased even the red glow on Selene's arm. For half a second the throne hall was a hole in the world. No sound. No light. No air. Then a small red ember bloomed in the middle of that hole. It was the size of a thumbnail. It was the shape of the letter on Selene's arm. The ember grew. It chased the darkness back into the corners of the hall. The darkness curled and ran. The Lord of the Black Sun staggered. He had spent his whole 9 centuries owning the dark. He had never met something darker than him before. Now he had. And the thing that was darker than him was not dark at all. It was a forge ember in a girl's skin. He sat back down on his throne. He did not get up again. Vasily did the last thing any of his line would have predicted. He bowed his head. He did not beg. He did not bargain. He simply lowered his crown. He said, "We did not know. Forgive us." Selene did not forgive him. She did not refuse him either. She lifted the broken chalice off the stone. The cracks stopped widening. They did not close. They simply waited. Like a door that has been opened but not yet walked through. She turned to the 6 other brides. She told them to walk out of the hall. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. The 6 girls walked out in a slow line. The handmaids did not stop them. Mother Helska did not stop them. Helska only watched Selene with that same quiet flicker behind her stone eyes. The flicker of a woman who had spent 170 years preparing brides and had finally seen the bride who could not be prepared. When the last bride was through the door, Selene turned back to the thrones. She spoke once. She said, "The solstice ends tonight. You will not summon another. You will not ride into another village. You will not pull another daughter from another forge. If you do, I will return. And I will not bring a broken cup. I will bring the rest of my name." The lords did not speak. The lords did not move. The Lord of the Wolf was still held by the mist. Selene lifted one finger. The mist released him. He fell to one knee. He did not rise. Vasily lifted his head one last time. He said, "There is a thing you should know. We did not begin this right. We inherited it. The ones who built these thrones Use the right to keep something else asleep. The 7 brides were never our wives. They were our locks. 7 mortal hearts on 7 thrones to keep the door at the bottom of the lake shut. If you break the right tonight, the door does not stay shut. Selene looked at him. She looked at the dark wine still pooled on the stone at her feet. She looked at the broken chalice in her hand. She thought about what was under the frozen lake. She thought about her father in his cold forge at the bottom of the mountain. She thought about the 6 girls walking out into the snow in their bare feet. She said one sentence. She said, "Then I will be the lock." She drove the broken edge of the chalice into the base of Vasily's throne one more time. The mist poured out of her hand and into the stone. It did not crack the throne further. It sealed it. The 4 cracks closed. The thrones knit themselves back together around a new center. That new center was not the 7 lords. It was her name. The name she had not spoken yet. The name that had been hidden under a burn scar on the back of a smith's daughter's hand for 19 years. The 7 lords sat down. All of them. At the same moment. Not because she had ordered it. Because the right had a new keeper now. They felt it in their bones. They had served the right for 900 years. Now the right served her. She walked the length of the throne hall alone. The mist walked behind her. The candles relit themselves one by one as she passed. Not the same flame. A new flame. Pale red. The color of a forge ember at first heat. The hall would never burn white again. Outside the gates of Varith, the 6 brides waited in the snow. They were shivering. They were laughing. They were holding each other. They had not laughed in days. Selene joined them. She put her cloak over the shoulders of the youngest one. The youngest one was the girl who had been singing the nursery song. The girl looked up at Selene. She asked her a question in a small voice. She asked, "Are you a person?" Selene thought about it. She said, "I was. I will try to be again." They walked down the mountain together. The snow did not fall on Selene. It fell on the others. On her it simply parted. She did not say anything about it. The others did not ask. There is a kind of knowing that does not need words. At dawn Selene reached the forge. The door was still off its hinge. Her father sat on the cold anvil. He was alive. He had not eaten. He had not slept. He stood up when he saw her in the doorway. He did not say her name. He said the other name. The one carved into her skin. He said it the way a man says a prayer he had stopped believing in. Selene stepped into the forge. She did not flinch at the name. She took his hand. His hand was rough and old. She put her glowing palm against his palm. The glow went out. The mark sank back under her skin. The forge was quiet again. The world was quiet again. For now, Aldrich did not ask her what had happened in the throne hall. He had carried the secret of her name for 19 years. He understood that some stories sit better in silence. He only put a kettle on the rebuilt fire. He sat across from her. They drank without speaking until the sun came up. The Council of Varith did not ride out the next winter. The council did not ride out the winter after that. The villages of the Carpathian foothills lit lanterns on the night of the blood solstice for 9 years in a row. They did not understand why the riders had stopped. They only knew that the riders had stopped. Mothers stopped using the seal to scare their children. Old men stopped spitting on the ground. A song began to be sung at weddings. It was a quiet song. It was about a girl who had been walked into a dark hall and had walked out alone with the candles relighting behind her. Selene took up the hammer in her father's forge. She made horseshoes. She made blades. She made door hinges for the rebuilt cottages of the last village. She trained a young apprentice. The apprentice asked her once why she always closed the forge an hour before sundown on the longest night of winter. Selene smiled at him. She said, "Old habit." The apprentice did not push. The apprentice had learned not to push. Her father grew old at her side. He grew old in the slow, happy way men grow old when they have nothing left to fear. He died in his sleep on a summer night with her hand on his chest. She buried him next to her mother in the back garden. She did not cry on the day of the burial. She cried a week later. In the forge. Alone. With the door closed. She never married. She did not need to. The mark on her arm did not glow again. Not for many years. But sometimes on the night of the solstice, she would walk to the edge of the village and look up at the black ridge where Varith still stood. She would see a single candle in a single tower window. The candle would burn pale red. She would nod once. The candle would go out. Then she would walk home. The other 6 brides scattered across the foothills. 2 married farmers. 1 became a midwife. 1 walked all the way to the sea and was never heard from again. The girl who had sung the nursery song became a teacher 2 valleys over. She lit a small red candle on the longest night of every year. Her students lit one of their own when they were grown. The story passed from grandmother to granddaughter. It changed a little each time. The chalice became a goblet. The mist became a wind. The 7 thrones became 7 crowns. But the heart of the story stayed the same. A blacksmith's daughter was walked into a hall by men who had ruled the night for 9 centuries. She did not drink. She poured the cup out at her own feet. And the night that had ruled them all let her go. If you ever stand on the road above the frozen lake in winter, and you see a faint red light in the highest window of the old fortress, do not be afraid. It is only Selene, checking on her promise, making sure the gates stay shut, making sure the door at the bottom of the lake stays closed, making sure no daughter is pulled from another forge. The world is full of older powers than the ones that rule it. Sometimes one of them is born into a small house at the end of a small road. Sometimes she is soot under her fingernails. Sometimes she is the 7th bride. And sometimes she is the last one any council will ever dare to summon.